Hey guys, welcome back to Classic Picks of 80 Sticks. And for today, we'll be talking about the Head Graphite Pro. Today I'm hitting with Brian. So the racket I have there is the Graphite Pro in the turquoise color. My understanding is that Head made 3 different versions. I also have the black version. The black version doesn't have a head bumper guard and came out a year earlier. This one did have a head bumper guard, but I bought it with a full cap grommet as a replacement. It's kind of common knowledge that Head's grommets were pretty bad, especially the white grommets that would just disintegrate over a period of time. Since the racket came out in 1987, and so these grommets must have been more than well weathered. Interesting to note, I just got this racket about half an hour before I hit and recorded this video. So it is, I haven't hit with it before, so this is the first time with this particular version. It is a very solid version. I really liked it. Apparently it was strung at 59 pounds with the synthetic. I usually play with a Head Graphite Edge, and this one feels similar but more solid, a little bit stiffer. I like how actually the mod with the full cap grommet gives the head a little more weight, a little more plow through. It has an 18 by 20 string pattern, which doesn't help out with the spin, but I mean, compared to my Graphite Edge, which is 81 square inches, 18 by 19 string pattern, pretty dense string pattern. This one did produce more spin. What I liked about this was basically it was just solid all around. It had very good control. I felt like I could place the ball pretty well. It had decent power. Now, compared to a modern racket, this one probably doesn't compare in terms of the power category, but from the racket I came from, or I usually use, it feels really nice. It has some pop to it. Now, this racket came out around the time of the Head Prestige line, which is legendary. That's what the cap is from. It's from the Prestige. I didn't put it on, like I mentioned. I bought this racket, but my understanding is it is pretty hard to put on. Again, the racket came with a bumper guard, not a full cap, so it wasn't made for the cap, so it takes some finagling to get that thing to work. But I am certainly happy that there is an option to re-grommet the racket. The whole issue of 80s rackets and grommets is a big one, especially for Head, I think. From my experience, I think Head had, I don't know what kind of materials they use. I know it's some sort of nylon, but it, compared to other brands like Wilson, its grommets really went downhill in terms of longevity. My Head Graphite Edge grommets, I mean, most of them are disintegrated. It's the #1 reason why a lot of these rackets are unusable. It's like a tire on a car. Car could have a perfectly good engine, everything works, but the tires are flat, you can't use it. If the grommets are gone, on the racket. The racket may not have a scratch on it, but will basically render the racket unusable because you can't string it. In terms of ground strokes, again, I want to mention that this racket is really solid. Feels really smooth through the air. Really predictable, I guess is the word. And on volleys, very solid too. Ball doesn't fly. It's very crisp. Going back to grommets, I'm thinking about making a video regarding grommets and maybe showcase how hard it is to work with a racket with grommets in poor condition, especially stringing. The good thing about rackets starting just around this time, maybe just a few years before this Graphite Pro came out, is the individual holes for grommets, the grommets individual holes for strings, I should say. Graphite Edge had some shared holes where 2 strings would go through 1 hole, and it would really put some stress on some of the grommets, and it made it much more difficult to string. Now when those grommets disintegrate, sometimes it's nearly impossible to get the string through. Tubing doesn't even work, and those rackets make some of the hardest and most challenging string jobs. Again, on volleys, the racket feels really solid. Off-center hits still feel firm. Some of those low volleys are tough with some rackets. This one really felt good. Now Brian hits a pretty heavy ball with a lot of top spin, and I'm not one to move back too much, so I'm short hopping a lot of balls, and that really kind of tests the racket's ability to stay firm. And this one does a really good job in that. Like that one, I kind of short hopped it. Oh, nice short hop in the net, not so good there. Shot, Brian. So like I mentioned, this racket came out in 1988. So along with the Prestige line, it got a lot of play more in the early 90s. There's a whole history to this line and the Prestige line and the Head line during this time. Head went through a lot of changes from operating in Colorado, moving to Austria from the United States. If you're interested in Head's tennis racket history regarding the 80s era and the Prestige line coming about, going back to the Graphite Edge and the Graphite Vector, etc., there's a lot of good information on the Talk Tennis forum, especially from some of the posters such as Tennis Man, Retro Wagon, and VS Babolat. Those posters are like encyclopedias regarding Head history. Okay, that about does it here. I want to thank Brian for the hit today. If you get a chance to try this racket, I really recommend that you do. For those who have hit with this, share your thoughts. What you think. All right, take care. Bye-bye.